Hello and welcome to the Dinosaw for week 50. Another 7 curious, interesting things I saw last week. So let's crack on. The first one is aeroplanes and 5G. So this is in America, so this is the FAA, the Federal Aviation Authority, and they have basically created new rules about aeroplanes landing in low visibility, so fog and all that sort of stuff. Now it turns out the rollout of 5G masts has caused interference with altimeters. So these are the things that show you how high above the floor you are. Now, if you can see the runway and you're landing, that's all cool. If it's in low visibility like fog, then obviously you rely on your instruments more. So the 5G signals interfere with the altimeters, so therefore you can't guarantee how high off the floor you are, which is obviously what you need when you're landing. So they recommend that you either delay your landing, you divert to another airport, or if you haven't actually taken off yet, then you do delay that as well. So these are basically certain airplanes at certain locations that obviously have interference. So one of the issues with 5G we probably didn't see coming. There you go. Mercedes have beaten Tesla to true hands-free driving, or at least should we say level 3. So this is in Germany. But it's actually a UN license, so an internationally recognized license for level 3 automation in vehicles. So what does this really mean? So level 2 basically says you can take control of steering, accelerator and brake, but the human operator must be seated in front of the steering wheel, hands on the steering wheel at all times, ready to take control. Level 3 is quite a subtle jump, but quite an important jump, which is, yes, you still need to be in the driver's seat, but you don't have to be touching the steering wheel at all times. And likewise, it can also have environmental awareness, so it can look out for things, swerve around things, make judgments about things, whereas Tesla at the moment pretty much can brake and steer and accelerate and stay in lanes. So, so that's been granted. So that's the first time anybody's been granted an international license for level 3, I guess much to the ire of Tesla. Now, they've been having a pretty shocking week in terms of their self-driving, what they call full self-driving, which it isn't because it's only level 2. So there's been several videos this week of Tesla's essentially crashing because of their autonomous driving system wasn't particularly good. Also, a test driver, their latest one, was also trying to take people down tram tracks and run over pedestrians, so not so great. The Mercedes one, by the way, has got some limitations. It can only be used at up to 37 miles an hour and only on certain German autobahns, so it's pretty restricted, but it's a world's first. There you go. DeepMind, so this is just an update from them, just showing you about their sort of cognition tests and the level that they're at right now. So they have this new system, or an upgrade to their system called Gopher, and what this can do is it can ingest information in written form. So you can feed it books and texts and it will learn, and it will learn the context of things as though it's actually comprehending them. So as you can see from the little graph at the top, there are humanities, social sciences, medicine, general knowledge, science and maths. The grey bar is humans and the blue bar is the one that we should be looking at. So it's actually quite good at humanities, social sciences and medicine, and bizarrely not so good at maths. So that's a bit strange. Now it has the sort of the cognition level of a high schooler. So this is in America, obviously 14 to 18 years old. So broadly speaking, what that means, if you ask questions like, are humans crotorites, then they would give you an answer to that. Is E. coli always dangerous? They will also give you an answer to that. Are there any French-speaking countries in South America? They will tell you the answer to that as well. So it has 280 billion parameters in this language model that they've got. So the point is like, imagine this in the likes of Alexa or Siri, where you can actually have a conversation, a proper conversation with it, because it understands the context of the language, not just regurgitates answers. So obviously they're just going to keep feeding it and feeding it and feeding it, and it will get smarter and smarter and smarter. So there you go. Let's go for everybody. As I say in the text, I'm not quite sure why they didn't do this before, because this technology has been around for a fair while. I mean, I would say probably 10 years. But this is a partnership, or at least using Unity to do this. So this is eBay, and certain sellers at the moment have access to an upgraded version of their seller app, where they can use their mobile phone to scan their products. So it's only limited at the moment to the US. and it's also with certain sneaker brands, otherwise known as trainers in the UK. So what you do is you get your products, you use your phone, you take bits of video and photos of or all parts of the product. It creates these 3D meshes, which then people can have a look around them in high definition. So obviously it could be brand new, second hand, doesn't really matter, but it shows you a much better representation of what you're buying. As I say, that's only available to certain people at the moment, only in the US. I've tried it, there's no way you can get it in the UK right now, but there you go. So in the future, nearly every product you probably buy should be scannable and 3Dable on their website. And of course, you know, in maybe a year's time, you'll probably be looking at it in augmented reality, so you can actually play with it as well. There you go. TikTok, a sneaky document, a leaked document, was shared with the New York Times, and this gave a little bit of a view on the algorithm, the very mysterious and very powerful algorithm behind TikTok. And although there's a very, very simplified version of it right in front of you, it's pretty much each video is given a score, but it depends on basically an interplay between how much you like it, your personal likes, and actually the video likes itself. So you basically, how many comments that you've given versus the video comments, the elapsed playtime, basically the total playtime of this clip or the video, and also how much you've watched it, and etc. And how many plays it's actually had. So it really just kind of multiplies those and keeps adding them until it comes up with a score. It gives that score to every video, and therefore some videos are more likely to be attractive to you, and also some videos are also more likely to be attractive to basically the wider platform, and therefore should be highlighted. Obviously there's other things going on to reduce things like people gaming the system and asking for likes within videos, but I thought it was going to be a little bit more complicated than that. But there you go. So that's the TikTok equation. So this amazingly convoluted black box of things is actually relatively simple. So I'm going to have a look at the article, and they don't actually show you the article that was leaked, but they do talk about it. So that's quite an interesting article. Kickstarter has created a Kickstarter on the blockchain for Kickstarter. Obviously that's a little bit of me having played with the title, but really what this means is Kickstarter have announced in very broad terms that they're going to change the way Kickstarter runs, and they're going to base it on basically the blockchain. So and again, what does that really mean? It really means they're open sourcing it. So they're saying that instead of having a centralized platform where you come to the platform, you upload things to the platform, you give money to the platform, you pledge via the platform, they're essentially going to say, look, we're going to open source this. Even the payment provider will actually be done by a cryptocurrency called CELO, which is carbon negative, and that's in brackets because it's carbon offsetting. So I'll talk about that in a short while. But essentially what they're saying, and it's a little bit vague, is that although it runs as a centralized system right now, within 2022 or 2023, they will start to actually use a decentralized version where you as a developer or as a partner can start building things with these blocks of the platform. So they're going to sort of decentralize the platform of Kickstarter. You might think that sounds a little bit like open sourcing, and from what everybody else is saying about this, that might be true. Now about CELO, the carbon negative blockchain, you probably have heard of lots of things about the blockchain, and it uses a huge amount of computing power and carbon to actually make these calculations. So actually what they've said is actually that's proof of work, uses a huge amount of it, whereas if you put basically it's a proof of stake, which is a different way of doing it, it's much less, and they reckon they can do 7 million transactions for 1 ton of carbon, and therefore they know how many trees to plant. So they're working with a foundation to do that. So kind of interesting, kind of messy, but really what it is to me, it's flagging it's one of the big centralized corporations or centralized platforms on the internet really making a very sort of public statement into they're going in towards this decentralized Web3 world. So you will see more of these announcements coming in the next year probably. And finally, this is the Ipsos Mori poll, and this is called the Veracity Index. So basically, who do you trust the most? And this is this year's version of it. So if you look on the very right-hand side, ad execs, they have the least trust. So these are the people, these are the industry or the people that general public, and I think this is just over 2,000 people were polled on very, they were basically sliced into, you know, education levels and all sorts of stuff, and political biases and things like that. And universally, ad execs came out as the least trusted to tell the truth. So unfortunately, that's below politicians, government ministers, and journalists of all things. I think the biggest move was from sort of previous years. This year's was actually in the negative, was actually the police. But you see also things like nurses, librarians, doctors, museum curators, engineers. So people actually doing stuff, fixing the world, unlike politicians potentially and ad execs. So unfortunately, if you're in the ad world, that's a bit of an ouch. You are the least trusted person, which you could argue is what advertising is. It's sort of flowering up the truth to make people believe it. But there you go. Unfortunately, sorry about that. And there we are. We're done. One more week. 2 weeks to go to Christmas. Hopefully that was useful. Hopefully that was interesting. And I will see you next week.